had problems getting an email today.
Everybody's going to join at 7 o'clock on the dot.
Okay. Hey, the important people are here, you know.
Yeah, right.
Here they come.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, screen 3.
That's why
50
they have
people.
so many co-hosts, so they can also be signing people on.
Oh, right, yeah.
I lost my co-host privilege. I don't know what I did.
Berkeley's going to be sunny.
What happened?
I don't know. I think
Did
I
you
muted
use a bad word?
I muted too many people too fast. I was too quick with the mute button.
I applaud you in that. That can be very handy.
The power went to my head.
It's like, who can get to that name the fastest?
Exactly. Mute that one.
Do not accept instead of accept.
You just got co-hosted, Ellen.
I'm listening.
I see. I see.
Oh,
Get her mouth shut, Ellen.
get that mute button going.
See you all. See you all.
I've had my good laugh for the day.
No hiding. No hiding place. No hiding place down there.
Well, hello, everybody.
Hi, Ming.
Hi. Welcome. It is Monday at 7 o'clock, and therefore it is BCCO time, so it's wonderful to see all of you. We are in the second week of our exploration of the Frank Ticelli Earth Song and the Angel, a wonderful, wonderful work by Tina Anderson. And so we're going to be exploring that a little bit more today. And then we also have a special guest joining us this week, and that's Ofer Dalal, who is a fantastic conductor and has worked with choirs of many different sizes, and is also somebody that is well-versed in chamber chorus repertoire. And so he's going to be joining us in the second half of today's rehearsal. But today is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be diving into the music in specificity. Again, the normal rehearsal process for repertoire is to get an idea of the work first, and then to dive into the details to what makes that work have that sort of effect, or what makes that work. And then at the very end, sort of put things back together. And so last week we sort of explored, sang a little bit of both Tina Anderson as well as Frank Ticelli. But this week we're going to dive into it a little bit more, into singing more of the repertoire, into figuring out how to feel comfortable performing the work, and again, what makes it what it is. So we're going to start with a warm-up first, and then we're going to review some of the things that we talked about last week, both some of the structural things within both works, as well as diving into some more practical things. Then we're going to do some sectionals that include Ofer and Julia and Paul. And then we're going to have a wrap up that includes sort of an idea of the whole work again. So for that matter, I'm going to pass it off to Julia, who's going to start our warm up, and we will get started with rehearsal. So Julia, all yours.
All right, thank you. Hello, Ming. Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. Let's, as always, begin standing for a nice good stretch and relaxation to relieve tension. All right, so as always, make sure that your feet are about hip width apart, that they're not zipped up right underneath you or too far out, so you have some nice balance for yourself, and you have soft knees. That means a slight bend in your knees. And we'll start, as always, with a nice good stretch up to the sky. Here we go. Nice big stretch up. And actually, instead of just reaching straight up, imagine that you're actually holding a giant beach ball above your head. So you have a little bit of space. As we stretch up, make sure your shoulders are relaxed so they're not creeping up towards your ears. But as we stretch up, you should feel kind of a stretch through your side torso. And also a stretch as well kind of in your chest almost. It's like not quite the cactus pose, but you should feel a kind of opening as well in your chest as you kind of reach up a little bit more. And then as always, let's kind of bring it down so your arms are more parallel to the floor for a cactus, and pull your shoulder blades back together. You can actually lean back just a tiny bit and let gravity kind of help you with that, and kind of look up to the sky, open up that space, your heart space. And then let's bring our arms towards the to your sides again, and lean your right ear over to want to touch your shoulder, your right shoulder. Then take your left hand and splay the fingers out, kind of like this, and then pull that hand down towards the floor to get a nice good stretch. And just in a couple more seconds, we'll release that. So 3, 2, 1, release. Roll your head across your chest over to the other side, and same thing. You'll take your right hand this time, fingers splayed, and pull your hand down actively towards the floor to stretch this even more, and your neck and your shoulder and everything as well. And just feel like everything is releasing. My bones are cracking. All right, let's bring your head back up to the center. Roll your shoulders back a couple of times, and then bring your shoulders up, and then back, and then down for that last one. And then just kind of shake it out before finding a nice good posture again. Again, check your knees, make sure they're soft, and we'll begin with some breathing from there. So put one hand on your belly just to remind yourself, and just take a nice deep breath in and out on your own pace. So I won't count you in or out. I just want you to focus on what it feels like in your body to get a nice deep full breath. So go ahead and breathe in if you haven't already. A nice full breath that really expands down here. And then go ahead and exhale out, staying tall. So careful not to collapse as you exhale. All right, and now we'll do a breathing exercise. We'll start breathing in on 5 beats. And then every time, so it's this similar thing we've done before. We'll breathe in for 5 and then out for 5. And then we'll breathe in for 6 and then out for 6. And then in for 7 and out for 7. In for 8, out for 8. In for 9, out for 9. In for 10, out for 10. And I'll count with you this whole time. I want you to focus on making sure you're optimizing that full period of time for your breath. So if we're, counting through 8 beats that you are breathing in for, try not to just breathe in and take in air for the 4 beats and then hold for 4 beats and then exhale, right? Try to use all 8 beats for your big inhale, all 8 beats for your exhale. So try each time we add an extra beat that you're trying to use the full time to really fill up, gas up your tank, your air. All right, starting with 5. Here we go, ready? And breathe in, 2, 3, 4, 5. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5. In, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. In, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Last one. In, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Excellent. Breathe normally for a second. Do stay standing. I'm just sitting down at my piano. And before we do some singing now, just take a nice deep breath in again, and 3 Fs, actually 4 Fs in a row. The first 3 will be staccati, and the next one will be for any air you have left. So we'll go to get some nice engagement. Do that with me. Ready? And. And now with a nice lifted space in the back of your mouth. So feel like you have like an egg or something in your mouth so that there's space between your teeth and you have a nice lifted soft palate. We'll hum. So we have space. The only thing is that our lips are closed. So careful you're not clenching and making a small space here, but really try to open up inside. Feel like there's something in your mouth so that there's space. And we'll sing and. One more. All right, playing around with the openness in the back of our mouth a little bit more. Everyone just go ahead and make yourself yawn first to feel a nice lifted space in the back of your mouth. And with that space lifted, you almost sound like Julia Child when you talk. So go ahead and just say, hello, my name is, and say your own name, and just have fun sounding like Julia Child for a moment. Go ahead. Hello, my name is Julia Morris, though. And with that space, we're gonna play around with it. So we'll sing. So an NG in the back, which you'll notice actually brings that space closed, and the ah will have to bring it back open. So see if you can play with the flexibility of that space and really open it up for that ah. Same spot one more time, and then we'll keep going up. Ready, and go. Last one for this one. All right, and now that we've kind of found that flexibility with that soft palate, that lifted space in the back, let's see if we can find even more of that lift. And we'll sing at the same time. See if you can focus on finding a nice forward sound. I know we talk about this very often, but the A vowel is nice and forward. Everyone go A, A, something like that. And then the ah vowel can be a lot of things, but it tends to fall back a little bit too much. So we don't want oh, but ah. So I want you to say in a row, A, ah, and see if you can keep the ah nice and forward. Ready, and A, ah. Now the goal is for singers to keep that nice forward placement while still keeping your sound rounded in the back. So that same soft palate lift we found with the yawn, at the same time a nice forward space. So we'll focus on that and we'll go eh, ah, and sing eh, ah, eh, ah, eh, ah, eh, ah. go, of course, we always need to modify the vowel. So the space you're creating for the for the high note can turn into or something else. That gives you a little bit more space, and what that does is lift your soft palate just a little bit more. So starting around here, maybe even a little bit further down than we are right now, we can think instead of we can think and that will create more space. So let's try it right where we left off, and we'll go a few more notes higher. Ready? And go. One more. All right. And then another kind of exercise on one note together in unison, assuming in unison, considering we're not all in the same room together. But on one note together, we'll sing a vowel flow. So we'll sing 5 vowels, E, E, A, O, U. And the goal will to be to sing them with kind of razor thin switches between the vowels. So to try to eliminate diphthongs or glides between the vowels. So instead of E, A, O, where there's kind of sound and space in between, see if we can focus on getting a razor thin E, A, O, U. Now notice how I didn't actually, like, there was still connected space. The breath was always connected, the sound was always happening, but the vowel, the mouth shape just changes instantaneously. So see if we can focus on that. When we get to the oo this time, we'll go ooh. So the full exercise will be E, A, O. Go ahead and sing that with me and practice trying to make your vowel changes as fast as possible. Here we go. And E, A, O. E, A, O. E, A, just a couple more. Last one. All right, and with that, let's take a nice deep breath and do a siren together from kind of mid-range up high and then back down. Never really, we're never trying to strain and stretch as high as we can go, but just trying to find all the notes in between and relax and refresh our voices with this sound. So a nice deep long siren together. Here we go. All right, and with that, I will pass it back to Ming.
Thank you, Julia. So I'm going to change, hold on just one second. Okay, thank you, Julia. Wonderful warm-ups as always. Remember, the warm-up is not only to warm up your voice, but also to warm up your mind. And it's to sort of get you ready for the rehearsal process. And it is literally been exactly 1 year since we've been in COVID times. I started listening to some audiobooks. I'm listening to Four Winds by Hannah, I forgot what the last name is, but they were talking about the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl that ravaged the West and Midwest, and sort of the trials and tribulations that happened to each generation. And this is one of those times. This is definitely one of those times where we will look back on this 10 years from now and talk about the pandemic of 2020 and 2021, etc. But again, living in it, I just can't imagine it without being able to connect virtually. And obviously all of us remember back, I remember waiting around for my parents going and putting dimes or nickels into the telephones to try to call them to say, hey, I'm ready, we finished the movie, ready to pick, we're ready for you to pick us up whenever, all that kind of stuff, and waiting for them and whatnot. And the technology that allows us nowadays to connect to each other. And like we've been mentioning, we've been slowly trying to incorporate this new technology called Jack Trip that may allow us the ability to all sing with each other in real time, which is crazy. And so the Virtual Music Committee has been working very hard on trying to figure out how to make this happen. And it does involve a bit of technology and some new things, but the payoff is, of course, that we have the ability to potentially be able to sing with each other and hear each other and connect with each other virtually, musically, online. So look for that in the next few weeks and months or whatnot. But in the meantime, we're looking at 2 new pieces. And those 2 new pieces, of course, are the Frank Ticelli Earth Song, and then what we're going to look at a little bit right now, which is The Angel by Tina Anderson. So take out that score. And then, as we've talked about, remember Tina Anderson's music is very, very new. I think it was written 10 years ago in 2011 for the 80th anniversary of Abbey Road Studios. And it was a work that was chosen from a competition. And it's obviously, as you know, a very meaningful and powerful work. But Julie and I were talking about this today and about approaches on how to look at this music. And we decided that, there's really 3 types of singing that you do in this piece. So one is incredibly simple. If you look at the first page, I guess it would be page 2 is the first page. You already see 2 types of music. If you look at the soprano 1 line, the alto 2 line, and the tenor 1 line, we have these drones. And these drones happen throughout the music. Like if I turn to a random page, I'm going to turn to page 14. And page 14 is the soprano 1s and the tenor 1s that have the drone. And actually tenor 2s actually have a drone too. And so there are people in the chorus that will sing solitary notes that happen for a really long time. Now, of course, also on page 2, the first page, we have what I called last week parlando. And parlando is a musical term to say that you're singing in sort of a speaking manner, that it's not just sung, but that it has a lot of the rhythm and cadences as if you're speaking. So out of the midnight sky an angel soars silently towards the earth, but that is parlando. That is not only sung, but as the musical terms say, molto legato e rubato, with a lot of freedom and connection. It's basically like you're singing, speaking the text. And then finally, like we talked about last week, if you turn to page 3, which amazingly is the second page of music, that you see on the first few bars, moon and the clouds upon their nightly watch, and you have a break and you have the entire chorus, except for the solo sopranos, perceive his celestial song. And that is what we referred to as the very full singing of the entire chorus whenever we talk about that song, the music of heaven, of the heavens, of God himself, right? And so really there are 3 types of music in this work. There is a drone, there is the parlando section, and then there is these huge choruses that have most everybody singing most of the time, which is a very stark difference. And like we said last week, really paint that color of the music of the heavens versus the storytelling versus the atmospheric solo lines. So how do we put this together? We're going to be starting to talk about, the fact that this is a fully a cappella work. And the difficulties of fully a cappella works are that you don't get your notes from from instruments, from anything that has a static line, right? And so, as you know, when you have single notes that you sustain for a really long time, that doesn't mean that you actually sing that note the entire time. There's natural tendencies for us to drop as our support drops, and for the vowel to get sort of stuck, and that also makes a pitch drop. And so it's actually really hard to sing a steady, honest pitch for a really long time. And then, of course, the chords, sometimes they come out of nowhere where they are. And of course, the parlando section, as we talked about last week, sometimes it's really hard to understand the text because there are multiple lines speaking at the same time with different words going on at different times. So we're going to start to put this together. I am today without piano, so I've asked Julia to actually practically talk us through how to figure out some of these things together. And so we're going to work on the parlando section. We're going to work on the unison section. We're also going to work on how to make these magnificent, majestic, magical chords appear out of nowhere, because sometimes you don't get those notes from you. So Julia, I'm going to hand it off to you to talk about practically and start rehearsing some of those aspects, especially how to find some of these notes, as well as singing in a cappella and figuring out how to sing the entire work without any reference points. Julia, all yours.
All right, thank you, Ming, and hello again, everybody. So let's begin from that very first page, aka page 2 of The Angel, and take a look and review a little bit of the kind of introduction we got of it last week. So let's all sing the alto part. So before we do, though, I want you to notice that the alto 1 part and the tenor 2 part, right, which are the 2 parts that have the parlando line, do have, as Ming mentioned, they kind of move at different moments. They have words that don't always line up. I think that's true for almost every parlando section. Usually not all of the parts line up for the entire time. So it's really interesting that it's even though there are more than one part singing these words, the same text, just at different times, it's like they're kind of like following each other through the score here. So for now, to begin, let's all sing this alto line all in our register, in your own range. Because one of the things about, even if you're not singing this parlando line, if you're singing a drone, for example, one of the important things about ensemble and a cappella works is being able to track where you are in the line. So if you're holding a long note, instead of just counting through, okay, this note, instead of just kind of counting through all of the beats that you have, if you were a soprano 1, for example, it makes a lot more sense to kind of tune into and listen to what the altos or the tenors are singing. And that also gives them a little bit more choice of movement as well, and to be able to kind of hug certain notes a little bit more or linger for musical reasons. So if everyone who's singing a drone is aware of the line, of the melody line of the parlando line, I think it comes together much nicer in ensemble. So everyone beginning first on the alto 1 line, and then we'll take a look at the tenor 2 line, starting from out. And again, I'll give you 2 beats and then just kind of forget about the fermata for a second. So I'll give you 2 beats for free, then you have the word out for 3 beats. Here we go. 1, 2. Out of the midnight sky an angel. Oh, I'm sorry. I got messed up because I played an A natural instead of an A flat. Let's try that one more time. Okay, 2 beats again, and then your entrance. 1, 2. Out of the midnight sky an angel soars silently towards the earth. just pause there for now. So to remind us of some of the things that kind of help this become a little bit more parlando and less super notey, some of the things that Ming mentioned last week, right? The tenuto lines that are written. So for example, if you turn back to that first page on the words the and earth, those are kind of underlined almost by the composer. But also where the bar lines are. So I think the fun time signature changes everywhere aren't necessarily just for fun, right? But to help us kind of outline and identify kind of groupings of words. But also, you know, a downbeat usually is the strongest beat in a measure. So to change up the time signatures helps us to also help identify certain important words. So instead of just singing, out of the midnight sky an angel soars silently towards the earth. One thing we can do is think about a general line. So instead of thinking individual notes, just think that you're just drawing a nice line, a straight line as you're singing through this. But give a little bit more of like a hug, as I was mentioning, to some of these downbeats here. So, out of the midnight sky an angel soars silently towards the earth, but the... So kind of giving a little bit more love to those notes on the downbeat. Let's try it, everyone together, and then we'll take a look at the tenor line after this. Here we go, 1, 2. Out of the midnight sky an angel soars silently towards the earth, but the... Keep going. Moon and the clouds upon their nightly watch. And we'll pause there for the altos. Let's turn back and look at the tenor line. Again, it's the same text that the tenors are singing, but they move at different times. They have a different rhythm and a different kind of cadence to their words as well. But they do match up with the altos on the next page. So let's take a look. Here's the tenors. Same thing, I'll give you 2 beats, and then you enter right on beat 3 there and sing out for 3 beats. Here we go, 1, 2. Out of the midnight sky an angel soars, but the moon and the clouds upon their nightly watch.
Wait, Julia, that's that's a fantastic tenor voice.
Thank you. And that's not a vocal transformer either.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. Sorry, I just had to butt in with that. Okay.
Thank you. I used to sing in college. I sang in an all women's a cappella ensemble, and I sang alto too. And when you're only singing treble music, alto is like really low. So I got some practice there. But thank you. Okay. So that section there though, tenors. If we were to think about the same things that I just told the altos a second ago when we were looking at their line on the first page, what are your most important words? Go ahead and type in the chat. What are your most important words and why? Thinking about the same reasons, the same ways that we look at what's important, the reasons we talk to the altos about. Anybody? You don't have to be a tenor to type in the chat. Sky. Exactly, because sky is right on the downbeat.
Oh, but this is a really interesting question because it has a question mark in it. There's something very confusing about the tenor line in what is notated there. So this is a really good question. So look at this with a little bit more specificity.
Oh, okay. More specificity in what way, Ming?
Oh no, let's see if other people find it first. No, but it's really interesting because when you look at the alto line, obviously, we focused on certain words that stick out very clearly. Like soars has twice as much time and length in the alto line than any other word except for the first and last words. Out has a 2-note line. The earth, as you mentioned, has 2-note lines. But when you look at the tenor 2 line, there's something a little odd about this. What does everybody see in the tenor 2 line? Out of the midnight sky, an angel soars but the, right? What do you see in it? What do you hear in it? Or rather, what you see in it, because I can't hear it. I don't think, yeah, well, Nadine has it. It's not the word angel. There's a tune note on angel, right? That sounds a little weird because we don't say angel that way. We say angel. We don't say angel, right? So what is it about that makes it important? You know, that's one of the clear signs that there should be emphases on the words somewhere. And when we have the word out, you can say, oh, well, that's coming out of the fermata. Out of the midnight sky, an angel soar silently towards earth, but when you have the tenor line, out of the midnight sky, an angel soars, but you know, that's a little funny. So why do you think why do you think that syllable, specifically angel, is emphasized? Any ideas? Julia, anybody?
I don't have ideas, at least yet.
Yeah, so people have some really interesting observations. First of all, there's clashes with the alto line there. Swords is not emphasized. The beginning of the decrescendo falling, a lot of these are things, it's the name of God. That's a really, really interesting idea. It's really echoes of soprano phrasings or whatnot. And so, you know, again, what we see is that the words don't line up, but that there's a certain cadence to the phrase that starts to line up. And so even if the notes don't line up, that there's sort of a weaving together, and that the composer, Tina, is saying, this is where we sort of fall back together again, right? And so this is where it's very interesting because, again, the words don't line up, the pitches don't line up, but the phrasing lines up. And so for me, it's not that it's the second syllable of the word angel. There's some special meaning to angel, and we're supposed to speak it in some weird, you know, emphatic way, angel soars. But it's really that there's a breath to the lines, and that they sort of come together very briefly to imitate the rhythm in that fourth bar, or I guess it's the third full bar. And that is sort of how this comes together. And so again, they're very disparate, but when you sing them, there's a certain freedom to both lines, and that they come back together again, even though their pitches don't line up. So what I'd love you to do with Julie again is to sing those first lines, and maybe you can sing one line or the next. Maybe Julia will sing one line and you can perhaps sing the other, or you can sing the same line that Julia's singing. But to try to have a little bit more freedom in the line, and then know that when we get to the earth or angel soars, that's sort of the goalpost that we're going towards. Out of the midnight sky, an angel soars silently towards the earth, but right? But you're really going towards that third bar. Let's try that together. Julie, do you mind leading us in? Maybe I'll try to, well, no, I'm not going to muddy it up, but I'm going to sing whatever you don't sing. And feel free, everybody else, to sing what Julia's singing or what I'm singing, but you can't hear, or whatever. So Julia, lead us in with one of those lines.
Cool. I will sing the alto line just because it's more comfortable, I suppose, in my range. But if you're singing tenor, that's your note. Here we go. I'll give you 2 beats and sing 1, 2. Out of the midnight sky, an angel soars silently towards the earth, but
Now, for me, I was singing the tenor line, and I found it quite difficult because I was listening to Julia sing, And I was noting all the times that I was clashing with her, both the rhythm and pitch, right? And so that's part of the fun about this line, is that this is going to happen constantly through the entire work. The entire work has two lines that are often clashing with each other. And it's good to just be able to sing your own line, but also be able to connect with the other line, even though the other line is doing the best that it can to try to throw you off, right? Why don't we do that again? Why don't we do the same exact thing? Julia, why don't you sing the alto line? And, feel free to sing the alto line if you want to sing the alto line. Feel free to sing the tenor line to try to challenge yourself. But see if you can try to connect to the voice. And Julia, with that crescendo, accelerando ritardando, why don't you push us through a little bit through that bar and see if we can connect to you and try to, yeah.
Molto rubato.
Face of yours, molto rubato. Let's see if we can connect with Julia, whether you're singing her line or the tenor line.
Okay, this is dangerous. Okay. Again, first notes. Here we go. 1, 2. Out of the midnight sky, an angel soars silently towards the earth, but
That was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. What I'd like to note is what Julie and I have both been doing actually multiple times now, and this seems very natural, is that we should take a breath after the word earth on the third bar, if you're an alto, or the tenor 2 line soars. Because the line is out of the midnight sky, an angel soars silently towards the earth, but the moon, right? And so that's a really nice thing to do. Now, Julia,
yes.
because you sang the tenor line so beautifully, can you sing the tenor line? And why not? I'm going to try to sing the alto line, but again, feel free to sing whatever you feels most comfortable. If you want to join Julia in singing the tenor line and join her, or to try to sing the alto line against her, feel free to sing one of those lines. Okay, here we go.
Right. Here are our notes again. Here we go. 1. Out of the midnight sky, an angel soars, but the...
Nice. I was singing in alto land. But this is actually something that we discuss in dance actually quite often, that I found it actually much easier to sing the alto line because there's more notes to fit in. And so that's something to be aware of. Now, this exercise wasn't actually, Julie and I actually discussed this beforehand this afternoon, but this exercise wasn't just to teach you the alto line and the tenor line. The more important thing is to be able to sing against somebody else that's clashing against you. And even though we're not together physically, that if we were together physically, that would be the major difficulty, is to be able to sing the lines even though they clash against each other a lot. One of my favorite things we used to do in undergrad, I think I've mentioned this before, is to sing Happy Birthday a half step apart from each other, which is actually really, really hard because, the stepwise motion is fine, but when you start jumping pitches and jumping intervals and you hear the other line, it's really hard not to be drawn into that line. So we're going to spend a little bit of time with this in sectionals, of course, but I want you to kind of look at this. And Julia, do you mind showing us on page 3, which again, inexplicably, is the second page. We have this chord that comes out of nowhere, this D minor full chord from all the voice parts. And yet only one voice part, the alto ones, have the same note. No, they don't even have the same note. Nobody has the same note from before. And so finding this pitch is going to be really difficult. So I've asked Julia to sort of give us some hints and clues on how we can find our pitches for this first chord, which the entire chorus comes together and sings.
Absolutely. So there are a couple of things. I think it depends on your voice part, obviously. But all of the voices who are singing up until that moment where we have that huge black chord can give you clues to your next note, no matter what voice part you're singing. So the first thing, I'm just going to take alto ones because I think yours is probably the easiest to find. But as Ming noticed or just pointed out, right, notice how on measure 4, or the whole page before, we're actually in 4 flats. That includes the A flat, which I actually played incorrectly the very first time that I had to sing. So the moon and the clouds upon the nightly watch. And then we change keys. We drop that A flat and we sing purr. So your first note is a half step up from the note you were just singing before. So that's a really easy way to lock into that. Bass ones. You have a choice of either doing exactly what we just did with the alto ones, singing through and finding your note from just a half step up from that alto note, if that's the voice part that you can hear more clearly. Alternatively, you can listen to the tenor twos and this line that they have. Moon and the clouds upon the nightly watch. Then you move a half step down. Perceive. So that's how you can find your first note there, bass ones. You have your choice. You can watch that tenor 2 line and step a half step downwards. Or you can listen to the alto 1 line and step a half step upwards. Either one. If you are, let's see who's next. If you're singing a D as your first note on that perceive, if you're a bass 2, or if you are even a tenor 2 or a tenor 1, or if you're a soprano 2, all that you have to really listen for is that drone, that the sopranos and tenors are singing that entire first page, and the alto 2s. They're singing this long note this whole time, and then you just have to take a step up from it. So basses, you'll actually have to kind of ghost the note down an octave and imagine that it's down here. And then your first note will be, this is your first note. So everyone just go ahead and just sing a nice long drone. If you are a soprano 2, or if you are a tenor 1, or if you are even a tenor 2, or if you are a bass 2, if you have chosen one of those parts, go ahead and just sing with me for like 4 beats, this C, and then you'll take a nice whole step when you step up. So just sing on a nice ah, ready, and cut off, and then your next note is so a big whole step. You have to feel like that's a giant step up, but it's just one whole step up. Otherwise, though, the last note that we have not gone over yet is if you have an F on your first downbeat there. So if you're a soprano 1 or an alto 2, the way that you can kind of find your note, it's not really an easy way, but you'll be singing this this drone C this whole time, and both of you will get to leap up a 4th, which is the here comes the bride. That's that interval there. So you can just kind of think of that in your mind, where you'll sing la and then per for your first note. So go ahead, just with me, altos and alto 2s rather, and soprano 1s. Sing with me for 4 beats, and then just sing your next note. We'll cut off and then sing your next note. Here we go. Ready, and off. So that's how you find your note there. I think that's actually everybody, but one thing, the other way to just kind of memorize where your first pitches come from is just memorizing the sonority shift. So again, this drone is happening this whole time, and the last couple of notes that we get from the altos and the tenors parlando moving lines, we get this nice little clash here. That's the kind of sound that we have on that last fermata before it cuts off, and then we have this giant chord. So I want you to see if you can hum, I don't care what voice part you're singing, but I want you to choose one of the notes that either the soprano is singing, the alto, or the tenors, in those first 2 measures, right, on that last fermata there. Choose one of those notes that is closest to your note, as we just talked about, and then hold that note, and then cut off with me, and then hold that note on the next downbeat. So you're just practicing changing between these 2 last chords here. So if you will find your note from the tenor 2 line, that's the tenor 2 line. Tenor 1s if you're singing a drone, alto 2s if you're singing a drone, alto 1s, and then soprano 1s if you're singing a drone. And go ahead and just sing one of those notes, and then time to cut off, and then sing your next note. Somewhere in this chord is that downbeat there of your next chord. Let's do that one more time just for some practice, because it just takes repetition sometimes to feel the sonority shift. So again, if you were at tenor 2, tenor 1, alto 2, alto 1, and soprano 1, singing this, let's just hold that for 4 beats and then we'll cut off and then sing the downbeat. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, off, and that's your first note. All right, so that's kind of a way that you can practice finding your first note for that first chord. And then of course, most of the movement there of each individual line is a little bit more stepwise or small leaps that we'll go over, I think, more in depth in sectionals. But that's at least the theory behind how to find your first notes.
Great. Thank you, Julia. Jerry mentioned this thing, Charles Ives used to have him sing in one song in one key while he accompanied another, but Charles Ives was actually, there's a lot of great stories about Charles Ives because he was a insurance salesman for a long time, but he also composed night, whatnot. But he lived in the center of town, and 2 marching bands used to practice because they used to interfere with each other. One would practice on one side of town and the other would practice on the other side of town. And so fortunately for Charles Ives, he could hear both of them at the same time. So they sort of clashed against each other. And Charles Ives ended up actually becoming a bitonal composer oftentimes, where he composed at 2 keys at the same time. And so this idea of clashing actually he loved it. And a lot of his music has to do with 2 tonalities clashing against each other and sort of this bitonality. It's really kind of fun. So in any case, that is actually one of the harder key changes to do. But like we were talking about last week, the sound, this mystical sound that comes from the heavens, if you have it suddenly coming from nowhere and a key that comes from nowhere, it actually becomes much more special in that sort of effect. And so, like we said, in about 9 minutes, we're actually going to go into sectionals. We're going to learn about some of these things and go through the notes much more in detail. And Ofer is going to join us too. So Ofer is going to take actually 2 of the voice parts, altos and tenors, I believe. And then Julia and Paul have their sectionals too. But we want to just quickly before that, in the next few minutes before we take a break, actually go into Frank Ticelli's Earth Song. And this is a work, of course, that Julia introduced us to last week that is so gorgeous, but has this musical motive from the first bar that repeats over and over again throughout the text. And with solemn reverence, if you look at page 1, which is page 3 in this work, so composers seem to have difficulty with counting. We are musicians. Julie, can you give me a G?
Sure.
But you see that split between the soprano and alto lines. You have that G to the B flat, and then it resolves in the alto line, and it clashes there. This line, along with the basses and the tenors, this motive that we talked about multiple times. If you see in the bottom, if you see sing, be, live, we all have the same theme, then C at the bottom. And then when you get to dark, bar 9, you see the altos, tenors, and basses still have that theme. Ta, ti, ta, with this crescendo decrescendo. And this happens throughout. If you turn the next page to page 4, again, the altos, tenors, and basses on wind on the first bar, bar 11. We have on the bottom of the page, 15, 16, and 17, vain, war, where the crescendo decrescendo. The end of that page, bar 19, blind. You have on the next page, page 5, bar 24 and 25, pain, and pain again. And then, of course, you turn the next page to page 6, bar 34, light of song in the tenors and basses. Light of song, and then page 7, bar 40, the end of the top line, sing, and the next line, be, live, and see. So the big thing that we're going to do is, even though this music is a bit easier than the angel, is to get our phrasings all together. So Julia, can you play those first lines? Sing, be.
The very first opening measures.
Very first opening 4 bars.
All right.
Now, that last chord was the first chord where there were no clashes. And yet, it doesn't sound settled at all, right? So what I'd like to do is, Julia, can you give us the first pitches for the opening chords? And I want us all to crescendo to the second note. C, B, and I want you to really feel like there's not a sharp accent on the second note, but that it is a short crescendo and a long decrescendo. So can you give us our pitches, the first 4 bars? I mean, sorry, the first pitches of the first 4 voice parts?
Sure. Basses, tenors, altos, and sopranos.
Now, again, if I were to show you this, I would say, C, T, slow decrescendo, but quick crescendo. Let's sing the first 4 lines with Julia playing, but knowing that you're crescendoing to the second beat and decrescendoing for a long time, as if you're creating a long wave.
All right.
Julia, can you lead us in?
Sure. Or sorry. 1, 2, ready, and. Oh, I'm sorry. Here we go. And.
Great. And again, we're trying to create an evenness to the sound, like you're saying sing, be, and there's no accent on it. We don't sing sing or sing, but it really is sort of an earnestness in the music. Sing, be, as there's sort of importance to those notes, right? So we're going to do a lot of this in sectionals in a little bit to get into the details. But why don't we take a little break right now, and then after the break, we're going to introduce Ofer, one of our favorite musicians, as many of you might know. And if you don't know Ofer, he's an incredible musician and vocal chorus conductor, and so it'll be really fun to work with him. So let's take a little break. Feel free to unmute and chat about all things, these pieces, or Charles Ives, which we're having a lot of conversations about.
Why?
Hi.
Hi, everybody.
Why Charles Ives? What's with Charles Ives right now?
High tonality. So the idea of two lines clashing against each other, and then some people are talking about Charles Ives, about the fact that he used to have two keys clashing against each other often. And so much of his music has music that sort of clashes against each other, or two like melodies or pieces that are combined together and they sort of clash against each other. It's kind of fun.
Bands, two bands.
Oh yeah, two bands, because two marching bands, two choruses, two orchestras. He's pretty renowned for all of this. So yeah, feel free to chat. I'm gonna get some water.
Julia, help me.
Oh,
Hey, Julia, you know what happened?
No.
Before all this virus started,
Yes.
we were in England at the same neighborhood where Arvo Pärt,
Yes.
with the concert we didn't pull off, lived in the same neighborhood we were staying in south of London.
wow.
South. Then I come back to this country. Everyone, she's a talk about the virus. What is that? Am I crazy? So I discovered, to my lament, that we had stayed at a monastery there in, well, closer to the Channel than up by London. And they had extolled the virtues of Pärt because he was part of their community. Right? He had gone into their prayer services, sang, etc., etc. And I didn't have the quick wisdom to say, hey, is he down the street? Let me go visit.
Oh.
And I think it was. I come back all this way to this country, and a priest friend of ours in San Francisco also grew up with him south of London at that monastery. Can you beat that? I said, hey. He says, oh yeah, we were friends. We, our children mixed and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So sometimes you come so close. I could have chatted, gone to his house. So we walked those lanes. I'm really sorry, guys. I could have bought you a birthday cake from him, no?
Close.
God,
Mm.
I tell you, we could have probably even bought a house down the same lane. Things were affordable in that community.
Anything is here.
Well, I have a funny poem to read you.
Hey, Ofer, nice to see you.
Oh, hello there.
Where is he?
Muted or unmuted? I don't know. I thought I'm unmuted. Are you ready
Yes.
for the poem?
Oh,
I won't arise and go now and go to Innisfree.
Oh, yes.
I'll sanitize the doorknob and make a cup of tea. I won't go down to the sea again. I won't go out at all. I'll wander lonely as a cloud from the kitchen to the hall. There's a green-eyed yellow monster in the north of Kathmandu, but I shan't be seeing him just you and me. Well, this is really hard. I'm sorry. I think I can't read the rest of this except the end of it. Let's see. Give me your hands. I shan't request. Oh,
From the
God.
halls of
My
Montesquieu.
eyes are getting too hard.
Who's the author?
In a mile of you until this shit show ends. That's the end of it.
Assignment for next week, Kitty, is to practice the whole thing.
No, I can't read it. A friend sent it to me like this, and I cannot make it larger.
Well, you can work on it, transcribe it and work on it.
I'm
We're going
done
to
with
wait
it.
for the show next week.
No, I think that's good enough. I think you've heard enough of it.
Ofer, what are
You
you
got the
doing?
idea.
What are you working on these days?
It pulls in just about every poetic line from every poet you've ever heard.
did you ever
Can we
heard
hear,
of?
can we hear from Ofer? Ofer, what are you working on these days?
I don't know, we're in break. I thought, what am I working on? I actually took a short sabbatical starting in January from my choirs, and I organized for substitute conductors who work with them, which I think has been working well. It gave me some time, some time off to do other creative things. And then the choir gets to work with other conductors, and some of them are from the East Coast. It just has been exciting, right? It's an opportunity to work with remote conductors without having to pay for hotels and flights.
Neat.
And how's the baby?
She's great. She's fantastic. We have 1 and 7 months year old baby. She's learning how to talk. She's learning how to walk. Every day is exciting.
She's going to be a soprano or an alto.
She's both. Depending on her level of excitement, she's a sopranino sometimes.
Our child, the one that's 16 months old right now, has no clue that the outside world exists because you don't actually see people. So every single time we take a walk outside, she's just like, what are those people? Who are these people? Are there people that exist outside? Really
wow.
Ming, I miss your children. I miss your children.
Different.
So I want to introduce Ofer Dalal. If you haven't known of Ofer, Ofer is recently to the Bay Area. I guess recently to me is any time within the last 10 years, but
Right.
yeah. But is an amazing choral conductor, has a variety of different groups. And, as you just mentioned, even though he's on sabbatical, has been a musical force in the Bay Area. And so we're really excited to have him work with everybody. We're going to be working in sectionals first and then working with the larger chorus all together. But Ofer, welcome, and it's great to have you here.
Thank you, Ming. I'm excited to work with the choir again in this, this new format. We're all familiar with it, I think, by now, but still new and different. So I haven't worked with you guys in a long time, and definitely not in this format. So I do look forward to it.
Wonderful. So we're going to go off in the sectionals, and Julia and Paul have the sopranos and basses. Ofer, I think you have the altos and tenors.
Yeah.
Then how long do you think would be good to work in sectionals before coming back together as a whole?
Are we doing 2 pieces, right?
Yep.
The Angel and Earth Song?
Yes.
So let's do half an hour.
Okay, let's do half an hour in sectionals. I'm going to join you just to listen for the altos and tenors, but let's do sectionals for half an hour and then come back after that.
Perfect.
Great.
Welcome back, everyone. All right. Julia, Paul, are you here?
Yes, we made it back. Hello, by the way.
Hey.
I am here. Yes.
On what you did, we did mostly Earth Song and then a little bit of the Angel.
Yeah, same here.
All right. Which one did you start with?
We did Earth Song for most of it. Well, yeah, about 18 minutes or so, and then.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So since most of you probably have the Angel open, let's continue with the Angel, and then go back to Earth Song and finish with that one. So the Angel. We didn't get very far. Altos got to the second page, tenors not even. For now, we talked a little bit about the chant-like singing, which sopranos and basses, you get to do that as well later. With the chant-like singing, we want to make sure there is a hierarchy of important words and less important words. And then, of course, same with syllables. Some syllables are more important than others. And it's super important to lighten as much as we can so the important things come out. So everything that can be lighter, I think it was Michelangelo that said that when he makes a statue, he basically takes it's a process of removing. So he takes a big chunk of stone and then he starts removing until something is revealed. I think it's the same with chant. Basically, you want to remove as many accents as possible because our tendency would be to accentuate. So remove as many accents and make it as light and flowing as possible. Paul, it would really help me if you can play, and I don't need to play. I think it would help the singers as well. So if we can start from the beginning of The Angel at a tempo of about 1, 2, 3, a comfortable, slow tempo.
Sure.
And then I did tell the ones who just sustain notes, of course you don't have to sing it right now, but then if you want to just practice the other parts just for fun, by all means, you'll get to sing something similar later on. So sing with the altos, sing with the tenors. Let's all sing together from measure 1.
Okay, I'll give 1, 2, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1.
And that's where we stop. So we also noticed at our rehearsal the tenuto lines, the dashes near the notes. They indicate an important note, not always on an important syllable, but you'll find that the composer wanted to bring out 3 things in this phrase. One is the first note out. When I mentioned to the altos and tenors, before we leave the sustained note, she wanted us to re-articulate that note. So, out of the... So just, re-articulating that note. The second thing is the earth. You see, or for tenors, it's angel soars. That's why I mentioned to you that I'm a little... I take these with a grain of salt sometimes. I think that's an error in my mind. Angel, I wouldn't emphasize the B on the second syllable of angel. So I think mostly it was for the altos, the earth. And then on the on the second page there, on every 8th notes in measure 6, nightly watch, and that helps us to sort of pull the brakes, right? So for the retard to really articulate every note. Nightly watch. All right. Let's keep going. You know what? We can start from measure 5, do those 2 measures, and then keep going into the choral texture with everyone.
Okay, so here's the tenor and the alto. And if you're singing one of the drone pitches, there are the C's.
Wait, are we... Oh, sorry, I meant measure 4. I miscounted.
Okay, measure 4. So here's the tenor and alto and
from the word
drone.
moon. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, and 3, 4. Ready, and...
For a second. Yeah. Basses, how are you doing on those last measures of page 3? it's so hard not being able to hear any of you. I mean, Paul, you're doing very well, Paul. But choir, how are you doing? How are those? How is that last measure of page 3 basses? Is that going okay? I'm not hearing any response. Let's take everybody together again from page 3, starting directly on perceive his celestial, and in terms of the word celestial, right? Unless Julia, is there another way you do this word?
I think that's perfect. Celestial.
Okay, great. So here we go, all together, starting from perceive.
Okay. And 3, 4.
Good. I want to review all these eighth note lines, but one thing before then, going back to page 3 from the word perceive. It's always nice to see a big choral texture where everybody comes in and just sing it loud. Don't sing too loud because we have room. We need room to grow, right? So perceive his celestial, and leading all the way to the word song. So in our mind is the song, the word that we need to reach, and the word sostenuto that is printed above the staff there, right? So sustain, sustain, sustain. Not to start too loud and hammer every note, of course. Basses, I think that the word song where you enter before everyone else, it looks like a syncopation, right? So, right, it's an eighth note tied, so it feels like syncopation. We want to put an accent there. I'd say avoid an accent. If I try to put like the composer hat and try to understand why the bass come in before everyone else, I think the purpose is to make sure the low D gets enough time to resonate and sort of reinforce the chord, and not to come later, because it's such a low note. It will take our ears time to get that note. So you come in before everyone else, the low D, just to make sure it's present on the downbeat. So I'd say the S is not very important for the second basses. If it doesn't help you, sing that note, then don't use it even, and just make sure you give time for the note to bubble from those depths and come out. So no accent there. And then everybody loud and open on the word song. So with the right vowel, right? Song. And then there will be a cutoff for sure, and only the altos stay there on that silent G. Now let's keep going. That was a lot of things for you to just take note of. But let's just keep going from pick up to measure 10 with the alto and tenor alone. And again, sopranos and basses, you're welcome to join on alto and tenor if you like. With a pickup, please, Paul.
Sure. Here's the alto pitch and the tenor pitch. I'll try not to bias you too much with my own ideas about how this thing should move. I'll play it pretty straight. So 1, 2, 3.
And then altos, you probably want to circle that leap from G to B on measure 16. Everything is sort of a lot of stepwise motion, but then that on the nightly watch to just smoothen that out and make sure you get to that note. Okay. Can we start from pick up to measure 10 this time? So pick up to measure 10 and the moon. Yeah.
Yes, yes. You asked me to do that before, didn't you? Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
All right. Yeah, good. Any questions about this section? There are some notes, maybe you'll get them. I'd say because most of it is stepwise, it's pretty easy to read. But if there was a place where there was a skip or something that caused you to hesitate, just circle it, because it's okay to to hesitate the first time, second time, but you're great choral singers. You use a pencil, right? That's our weapon. So use the pencil, circle where it's confusing. Tenors, you have a moment of a minor, tiny drama in measure 12 when you come in and imitate the altos on and out of the midnight. So altos sing and out, and then tenors and out. That's a nice place for the tenors to come out a little bit, where it says dolce et espressivo. All right, I'd like to keep going, cover more ground a little bit. So let's all start together from pickup to measure 18. From perceive or the word night.
Okay, so here's the tenors and the altos. And if you're a soprano droning, there's the D. And 1, 2, 3.
Very nice. Altos, questions about this part? Some repeated notes that are confusing, maybe some skips. So in terms of again, just singing the right pitches, changing the page from page 7 to page 8, there's a repeated note, and if you didn't mark that can be confusing. Again, marking which words are important, and I would just underline nouns and verbs, just as a rule of thumb. Nouns and verbs would be usually the words that convey the meaning of the sentence. All right. Now, I do want to get to Earth Song. Let me just make sure if there's... Oh, yeah. Robin said a few minutes ago that it would be helpful to count. So we can do that. Now, before we move over to Earth Song, I just, in speaking in general about this piece, I did not know this piece before Ming told me about it. I think it's beautiful, and it's really magical. It's mystical. I love how the composer broke the poem, and things come back in, and right. It's not only chronological. Things sort of come in all the time. To the first sentence comes back in. And it's like looking at a suspended moment of in time, or right. It's not chronological. We just look at the same thing from maybe different angles all the time, and it's just there in existence. The poem is a romantic poem, so beautiful. It's a little naive maybe, but it's beautiful. I mean, I'd love to hear from you, anybody that wants to jump in and say a word about that poem. We talked about conveying the meaning, right? Because it's chant like, we're telling something. So conveying the meaning, it's important that we ourselves understand it. Very dreamlike, Lisa says. I like that, suspended. Yeah, I feel the same. So I'll just leave you with a homework question, okay? Just in order to understand the meaning. When I read the poem, the last sentence, and never it fades, that tone from God with its mournful sounds of the world. And my question to you to go back and ponder about is, what is with its mournful sounds? What is it? Because I'm not sure. I'm not certain that it's that tone that was in the beginning of the sentence. It could be the soul. It could be the angel. So that's a question for you to go and look. Maybe some of you speak Russian and can go back to read the original and tell us. But I was not sure what is what has mournful sounds of the world. All right. So that's homework. And Julia will make sure, right, that to give points to whoever comes back with the right answer or an answer. Might be artifact of translation. I agree. Yeah, go back and read the Russian, or maybe just try it for yourselves to interpret it. Right? It might be different from what the poet meant. Let's sing from Earth Song before we finish for tonight. Earth Song. We talked at the sectional about the importance of the diminuendo in every measure and how much it's harder than crescendo. So be attentive to that. And Paul, if we could start from the beginnings to sing with everyone.
Sure. Okay. 2, 3, 4.
Paul, do you mind counting out loud?
Oh, sure. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 4. 1, 2. Bar 11. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 3,
Good. Let's stop here for a second. Yeah, I like that. You're getting to sing a lot, which is great, right? That's why we come here. The music feels sometimes very serene, but remember that there's a lot of energy. There's a storm happening, right? There's something stirring. So the beginning, sing, be, live, see, that's a quote that will appear again at the end of the song. So it's like remembering something something that will come later, so anticipating something, that can be more, calm and serene. But when we start with the dark, stormy hour, let's make sure that there's energy there, and then a lot of discipline, every measure to do the crescendo, diminuendo, every measure, to never be on autopilot here. There's always something happening with phrasing, always. I gave a little detail to the altos, measure 17, to enjoy that clash with the sopranos, the F and the E. All right, on the word war. And then, of course, when you sing tenors and sopranos, the torn heart cry. So really to open vertically and making sure you're making space for that line. I think it's 9 o'clock.
Ofer, thank you so much. We wish we could have so many more hours with you. We miss you. And, the light behind you makes you look like a saint because it's got halo and everything. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I wish I could take it with me everywhere, that light.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually emanating from your back. You have a light that's there constantly for your back. Ofer, thank you again so much. And obviously, hope that you and the family are doing well and everything. And
we are. Thank you.
Luxury to have you join us. Like you were mentioning, it's so nice that we can all sort of virtually join up together. And even though physically can't, being able to connect is really great. So, so stay in touch. And thank you again.
Thank you, Julia and Paul, and thank you, singers. That's fun.
Thank you.
Everybody feel free to unmute and say thank you to Ofer. And
Ofer, that was great. It was really great. Thanks.
Thanks, Ofer. Good to see you.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Ofer.
Thank you, and thank you, Julia.